Hello, Shabaka. Good to see you. How are you doing?
Okay, yeah.
Cool, cool. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this and introduce a little bit of your music to our audience here in Monheim. Will you start us off with a tune or a little music piece?
Yeah, I'll play
before
something.
we chat. Thank you so much. See you. yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much. Ah, yeah, you couldn't hear me. Thank you so much. Very nice, Shabaka. As I said before to the people in German, we've been here like almost every week now for the last 3 months, introducing like musicians who will come to our festival. And as you know, this is not a jazz festival or this festival or that festival, but we try to kind of combine or contextualize all different kind of genres. And what I found interesting is that everybody said improvisation is an important kind of source or way of working. And how is that for you? Would you also say that improvising is I don't know, some importance, has a certain importance in your work? Of course, probably.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see that much of a difference between the improvising process and the composing process, other than the fact that composing has an element of reflection. You know, it has an element by which you're progressing a work, and you can progress it to the point where you're happy with it to the audience, whereas improvising is still accessing that area of creativity and that area of structure. But what you initially, your first idea is the one that reaches the audience, you know, and I think it's kind of crucial to be able to actually tap into that element by which you're just giving yourself in the moment, where there is no opportunity for reflection in terms of how you would like the piece to reflect a kind of greater ideal of who you think you are.
And when you play a piece like this, do you have an idea of how it's going to sound before you start, or is it you are listening to yourself and be carried away by what's happening?
It's a combination of everything, I think. You know, like my mental state during a piece like that just varies from the beginning. I try to start, in general, all music by not considering too much what the outcome is going to be. I find if I concentrate on what the resulting music is going to be, there's an element of tension, because I'm trying to reach an ideal, you know. And for me, music is something that goes beyond ideals. It deals with you know, the present. But while I am playing, there's things. You know, I think it's just to do with my interaction with memory while I'm playing. You know, things come into my mind, cellular passages, intervallic passages, you know, what they mean to me in terms of what I remember of them, what different contexts come to me. And I think I try to not necessarily grapple at any of, or hold on to any of these contexts or memories or intervallic or cellular processes. I just try to acknowledge them, and while playing, while my fingers are moving. You know.
Yeah, it's kind of. I always have the feeling when I play improvised pieces, it's like a conversation or a communication. If you're solo with the music in a way, like you have no bandmates to communicate with, but you're still communicating with the media.
Yeah, and I like that idea of playing music for yourself. There's a word for it that I can never remember, but I first heard about this approach to music from bow players in Swaziland, where the bow is their national instrument. So you got the bow, which is essentially like a bow and arrow, but you've got this side of it that goes into your mouth, and you and because your mouth is the resonator, maybe in conjunction with a calabash that's also on the bow, it means that you are getting, as the performer, you're getting most of the harmonics in your head, as opposed to the audience on the outside. And it's kind of counterintuitive to how we see the act of performance, where the audience gets the sound and the performer is the person working on, you know, on creating it. Whereas I love that idea where you're creating music for yourself firstly, and if someone happens to be on the outside and gets a part of it, that's also good. But it's primarily a healing for the performer themselves.
Well, I want to try that. I mean, I've seen the instrument. I don't remember the name, but I've seen the instrument. I want to try that. It sounds very, very interesting. I wanted actually to get to this. This takes me to another thing, but I wanted to get to, since we are talking about improvisation, one of your bands, the Comet Is Coming, which, as I read, works like this. So you're improvising, recording, and then transcribing the improvisation, turning them into pieces. Is that right?
It's nearly right. What we do, the way that we formed ourselves, is that Dan and Max, the synthesizer player and the drummer, were in a band called Soccer 96 that I was a massive fan of. So we'd been saying for a long time, I might be played with them on a gig, and we'd be saying for a long time, we should get together and just, jam. So after a couple of years of saying this, we finally got together and we decided we're going to have that jam in a studio. So we got into the room and we just started to play together. And what we found is that we've got a similar sensibility in terms of song form and structure. We weren't necessarily improvising in that we're trying to find what the music is supposed to be. We found we would just start playing and then we'd be playing songs. The chords and the beats that the other guys were playing just implied certain melodies that were obvious to me. So I played them, and then what happened was that we had 4 days of improvising melodies and improvising structures on the spot. Dan and Max went away for the next year and produced that into an album. So took that raw material and tried to refine it into a product, which is the CD, and that's how we've done all our recordings ever since then.
Okay, but then it's not that then you replay it in a way in concert, or more or less, or not necessarily.
No, we don't. But we play them. We basically, from the improvisations, we kind of produce song forms out of them, and then that becomes what we then use as material to create the live set.
Because in a way that what you talked about before about this instrument and the performer and the communication to the people outside. When I looked at videos of your performances with Comet Is Coming, this celebration and this kind of ritual aspect in the whole process, or in the whole being together with people listening, that all makes perfect sense. In a way, you are still as a band for yourself, but there's this strong relation too with people outside that made a strong impression on me.
Yeah, I mean, I think as a band, in terms of the way that our personalities interact together, I think we've got a really unique ability to be into ourselves as individuals, but as a whole, simultaneously. So a lot of the times in the Comet Is Coming, I'm completely focused on what I'm playing, singularly. But then it's like we've never discussed what to do musically ever. I've never told Dan what to play on the keyboards. Max has never told me what to play on the sax. There's almost no crossover in terms of any of us telling someone else what to do. It functions almost like an anarchist, society. Everyone is going forward with their own way, with their own method of how they can, achieve a common good, and everyone trusts that, their neighbor is looking out for the benefit of the whole. And that's really how it works in the Comet. We look out for the benefit of the whole, but how we do it is each singular person's responsibility.
Wow, that's I would have never guessed, actually, I have to say. It felt like what the things I know from your album, but also from the looking at the videos, is much more like, wow, it's so strong and it's so together and it's so, I don't know. I would have guessed. Wow, that sounds really great.
It does shock me, because for a band that essentially is very left wing in terms of its freedom, the resulting music is really is more orthodox than you would expect, considering the process. The process is very, is a lot freer than the music sounds.
Yeah, and I would like to come to another of your project, but I've realized, like preparing for today, that it's kind of really difficult for me to talk about this music, about your music in particular, because talking about it kind of needs a distance. I need a distance to look at it. And when I listen to especially the Ancestors, I lost the distance like this, and I was so much into it. So everything, when I look at it now, I say, I hear the history, I hear the quotes, I hear like the sonic relation to things I know. It all doesn't make it. It's this intensity and this. I can't really describe. It's this. In a way, it has this historical references, but it's so much today. It's so much now, or even beyond, like tomorrow. So that really impressed me a lot. But this is something you compose for, right? This band.
Which band?
The Ancestors. The Ancestors.
Yeah, I composed the music, the kind of foundational music. But then it's all composed in a way that reflects the best qualities of who I'm playing with. So when I'm composing, I'm thinking of Tunzi playing the alto saxophone, or I'm thinking of Toomey playing the drums, and what's going to happen when I add these elements to the music. So even though I'm composing it technically, it's composed by all of us, because everyone is suggesting by their musicianship like what I should write.
Yeah, sure, and one can hear that. I mean, it's so organically and so I don't know. It's very special music. And I remember when I first started, the first thing, so I don't know, some time ago, when I looked at my first video of the ancestors, I heard this quote or this saying of I don't know if I say the name right, Siabongo Mtembu, is that right? Yeah. Good, more or less. and he was singing this thing, and this stick to me since then every day. He said, in the burning of the republic, in our hearts and in our minds, we need new hymns, we need new songs. And this made such a strong picture with the music together, and like a theme, not a theme, but I don't know, somehow I kept sticking to that sentence. Mm. And I heard it back now on the We Were Sent Here by History album, in I think the second tune, or in one of the tunes I heard something like this again. So the whole thing is of course much more than only music that sounds, but there's a certain message or a certain standpoint, I don't know how to say, in the whole band or in the whole music, right?
Yeah, definitely. And one of the crucial points for the message is the audience's reflection on what they're given. So each tune on the album, for instance, is accompanied by a poem that should spark something when you read it in conjunction to the music. And I could tell you what the theme is about, I could tell you the specifics of it, but what I find more important is actually when you encounter all the different forms of media that surround the music, what ideas and what premises come into the audience's mind in terms of like what you've encountered before of those themes. And it might be that nothing comes in. It might be that you don't know, that much about colonialization, or about the idea of utopia, or about, for instance, the system of patriarchy. And hopefully the music is a vessel for people to explore these concepts, further. The essential point that we're trying to get through in the music is the fact that we need to dream more utopias, because the system or the way of living that we've assumed up until this point has come to a standpoint, is burning. And this was something that we were thinking about before the pandemic. It's turned out to be somehow prophetic. But yeah, the idea that we need to be able to dream new ways of arranging our relation to each other and to the cosmos is something that I think goes through all the work.
Yeah, I can't think actually of anybody who is not going to be touched by this and kind of get an idea, even if he hears or understands the words or not. But it's all over in the video, in the music, in the sentences, in the poems, and everything. It's very, very strong thing to me. Shabaka, would you play another piece for us?
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
Just press my reverb button.
Yay. Very nice. It's kind of weird, is it, to play and there's no... I could clap, but it wouldn't make a big deal.
I kind of love it. I love the awkwardness of it as well.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, beautiful. Beautiful. As you said before, there's in the we were sent here by history like a poem. It has this poetic quality all in your playing. Very nice. Listen, you told me, Shabaka, that you just finished a new Sons of Kemet record. That true?
We're nearly finished it. I think we're probably going to be finished it within the next couple of weeks. We're just in the final stages of mixing and production now.
And is this kind of linked, like musically or from the context to your Queen is a Reptile? Is this kind of a follow-up, more or less, or does it kind of has a relation?
I think it has a relation, just that in that everything that I do has some kind of relationship to what precedes it. But what that relationship is, I think will be told to me by everyone that hears it. But I'm not doing it. I'm not kind of purposefully making a follow-up album. I'm just making an album having the theme of the album be what's going on in my life.
I don't know. It's just also this album, the Your Queen is a Reptile, made such a strong impression, and not only the music. I mean, the music itself, without knowing anything, but then the whole idea and starting to think of the whole situation we're in, and like being supported. Also, I have to really say, by your music and by your work in all those thoughts, that was very strong, and I'd like to say thank you for that too. Besides all the other things. Yeah. So we are actually really looking very much forward to have you here next year. We don't know what's going to happen. I mean, we don't know what you're going to do. You come up with something. We don't want to decide now.
I mean, I hope that I can do the same project that was envisaged for this year, just because that is literally my dream project.
Yeah.
You know, writing a piece for all three of the groups combined. You know, with written material from other musicians, classical musicians as well.
Yeah.
So hopefully that can happen, because it
would be great. But anything, if you do something else, that's great too. And I really appreciate very much doing that you do this and come here and talk to us a little bit. Thanks for your time.
Pleasure.
To say goodbye, we would like to play, like for everybody looking here, we would like to play a little bit of your music together with a video. This is an excerpt from the We Were Sent Here by History album of the Ancestors. And the tune is called Go My Heart, Go to Heaven. Is that right?
Yeah.
There's also a poem in it, which I can't recite, but who wrote that poem?
It's a long story. Basically, Sia, the vocalist from the album, from the group, he wrote the lyrics based on just what we were talking about in the general space of making an album, and based on what the feeling was in the studio. Then I came back to England to kind of produce the album. I took what he was saying over the whole course of the album and tried to poeticize it and write poems based on a line from each of his lyrics contained in every song. Take that line and then extrapolate it into full poems. So, you know, I guess the poems started with Sia, but then I made them into the poems proper.
Yeah, so a collaborative work, like the other things. Very good. Thank you so much, everybody. I would like to say goodbye to the listeners here in German too. Thanks, Shabaka, first of all, for playing, for being here, for continuing this precious work you do. Thank you so much.